Hello, I'm Saul Brody from Philadelphia, PA, USA. You're tuned to the International Radio Report, 30 minutes of news about radio on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal.
Welcome to the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. It is Sunday, April the 3rd. My name's Sheldon. I am here with Jill. We thank you for tuning in to our show today. You can reach us by email, radioreport@yahoo.com. We're live streaming and archived at ckut.ca. We have a Facebook group, International Radio Report. We are welcoming Chris, Danilo, Paul, Keegan, and Dan to the group today. We're at 749 members. And we have our YouTube channel with 596 subscribers. You can go to youtube.com/International Radio Report to get previous editions of the program. We usually have the new show up there within an hour or so after it airs on CKUT. So if you missed the show live, you can check it out there. We have a lot of information for you today, so we'll get right to it. We have wrapped up the CKUT Funding Drive for 2022. We want to thank all of those people who contributed last week and over the last 2 weeks. We had 4 additional people from those we mentioned last week. We have Mickey, Janice, Steve, and Ricky all contributing. And the total amount of the funding drive, the goal was $35,000. They're just slightly over $30,000 as we're recording the show. And we do want to remind you that even though the funding drive has ended, you can contribute anytime you like throughout the year. ckut.ca/donate if you want to do it online, or you can call the radio station 514-907-9424. I'm not sure how long that line will stay open, so you might probably be best to go to the website, make your donation directly through there. So we thank everyone who supported CKUT, and in particular those that supported the International Radio Report. So we're good for another year, I guess.
Yes, I guess. Thanks.
We certainly hope so.
Thanks for the pledge.
Yeah, very important. We want to remind you once again of our special feature that the CIDX Club has put together called Focus on Ukraine. All sorts of information about radio-related information, communications, feature articles, SDR updates, what have you. You can go to cidxclub.ca/Ukraine. And version 2 is there now as well. So you 2 different files, version 1 and version 2. And version 2 has a lot of additional information and also some updates in it. So check that out at the cidxclub.ca website. It's right at the top of the page. You can't miss it. Talking about our show, we have received word from Tim Gaynor in Australia. He operates a station on shortwave called Unique Radio. And he was off the air for a while, but he's saying, letting us know that he is turning the shortwave transmitter back on and has asked our permission to carry the International Radio Report once again. So starting on Saturday, April the 2nd, so the first one should have run already, and Wednesday, April the 6th, frequency 5035 kilohertz in upper sideband. He might also use 3210 kilohertz upper sideband if the propagation is okay. So the show is going to air Wednesdays at 10:30 UTC. That's Wednesdays 10:30 UTC, and Saturdays at 0730 UTC. Again, the frequency 5035 kilohertz upper sideband and possibly 3210 kilohertz upper sideband. And that is Unique Radio in New South Wales, Australia. So we thank Tim for picking up the show again and getting it into his broadcast schedule for us.
Yep, good DX to try. And if you're in the Australian area, well, you'll be able to hear our show. This is pretty cool. There's the FCC that plans to hire to fight pirate radio. Now, we did have a news item, I think it's last year, where they were talking about maybe doing a little more about pirate radio and kind of making fines a little higher. So now they're following up with this, I guess. This is by Paul McLean of Radio World. The Federal Communications Commission, under Chairwoman Jessica Rosenwasser, plans to fill 15 new positions to help fight pirate radio using money in the 2022 Omnibus Spending Bill that was enacted this month. The Omnibus Bill will fund the federal government through September and include $5 million requested by the Commission to meet requirements of the Pirate Act that became law 2 years ago. The Pirate Act demonstrates that Congress views enforcements against pirate radio broadcasting as a priority. The Commission wrote to Congress in submitting its 2023 budget estimates to Congress. In addition to increasing the potential penalties for pirate broadcasting, the Pirate Act imposes significant new responsibilities on the Commission. Among other things, the Pirate Act requires the Commission to 1. Conduct annual enforcement sweeps in the top 5 radio markets. 2. Conduct follow-up monitoring to determine whether pirate broadcasters identified in the sweeps are still on the air. 3. Is to publish a pirate radio broadcasting database that clearly identifies all licensed broadcasters operating in the AM and FM bands and all pirate radio broadcasters. And 4. Submit an annual report to Congress summarizing the Commission's implementation of the Pirate Act and enforcement activities in the prior fiscal year. Additionally, the Pirate Act specifically provides that the Commission must conduct the annual sweeps without decreasing or diminishing its regular pirate radio enforcement efforts. Lean, accountable, and efficient is what they want to be. So for 2023, the FCC is seeking a substantial increase in funding for FCC enforcement generally, $48.2 million, an increase of almost 25%. The Commission's request to Congress for 2023 budget authority is $526.4 million, up about 2.7% from what it is spending in 2022. Within that number, it is seeking about $390.2 million for activities that are paid for by regulatory fee collections of 4.3%. Most of the rest would be for managing its spectrum auctions program, down slightly from last year. The Commission said that since 1994, spectrum auctions have generated more than $233 billion for the government use, at a total cost of less than 1% of that amount. The agency also seeks an increase in full-time job positions in creating a lean, accountable, and efficient commission that works for the American people. The Commission requests 1,600 full-time equivalents funded by budget authority from regulatory fee offsetting collections, spectrum auctions program, and other budget authorities provided by the President and Congress, it wrote. The Commission published a budget in brief that is available on the website in a PDF format. So I guess they are getting a little more serious on cracking down pirates. And, from what we see here with the spectrum and talking about who is using that spectrum, they seem to be mostly enforcing on what is the AM and FM band, the broadcast band. That seems to be mostly where they're going to focus their efforts. It is amazing. I still am surprised at the amount of FM, especially FM pirates that can be heard, like in New York and the big cities in the United States. So I guess the big companies, the major broadcasters are kind of telling them, look, do something, because we don't want to have these on the spectrum with us.
Yeah, I think the 5 cities that they're talking about, probably New York, Miami, possibly Boston, I think. It's been pretty active scene in Boston, I think. I'm not sure what the other 2 might be. Maybe Chicago, Los Angeles. I'm not really sure. But definitely New York and Miami, those 2 for sure are the band is full of them. And I think they're, like you said, they're really focusing on AM and FM because that's where the potential for interference with licensed stations, that sort of thing. So I think probably the shortwave pirates are pretty safe. They're not in the same league as these almost commercial pirates that are on the air, particularly on the FM band.
Yeah, and like we said, most of these pirates probably get caught because somebody complains. And in the AM and FM market, well, there's a lot of players there that capable of complaining that somebody's on the bands. So what's happening with our sun? Well, a lot of things are happening with our sun. This week particularly, we had tons of solar flares. One particular moment where there were like 17 solar flares in succession in just a few hours from the same sunspot. And all of that was actually, we were waiting for a coronal mass ejection to arrive and create some really strong geomagnetic storming. And it did arrive. It arrived actually while I was doing my live show. Somebody just got in their chat room and said, hey, it arrived according to spaceweather.com. And it did create some geomagnetic storming, but it stayed at the G1 level. It wasn't as strong as they actually had predicted. But still, a lot of people have seen auroras all across the northern states of the U.S. The closer you are to the poles, the bigger the chances of seeing auroras, especially in dark areas. That has subsided a little bit, but there's still some activity. The sun is active. The sunspot number is 84. The solar flux around 150, which is very nice. And there is, in the forecast, a coronal hole that is actually having some solar wind that could reach us on April 3rd or 4th. So that could, of course, cause some more disturbances today and tomorrow. And we have to keep an eye out in case there are more solar flares as the sun is getting more and more active. This is something that actually might happen. But overall, propagation, when it's in more quiet conditions, propagation is surprisingly good. Lots of stuff on the shortwave bands, especially from like Radio Thailand, and KBS World Radio has been reported almost every day on its 15575 frequency at 13 UTC. In North America, so this is nice. And of course, the best way to really know what propagation looks like is to turn on that radio and listen.
This is Glenn Hauser, on the air since 1987. You're tuned to the International Radio Report, 30 minutes of radio about radio, every Sunday morning on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal, and live streaming around the globe at ckut.ca.
We take you next to Afghanistan, and a report from La Prensa Latina on March the 28th. 4 radio stations shut and 6 journalists arrested in Afghanistan's Kandahar. The report comes from Kabul. The Taliban government forced 4 local radio channels to shut down and arrested 6 of their workers in Afghanistan's southern Kandahar province, media watchdogs said on Monday. Hujatullah Mujahidi, who heads the Afghanistan Independent Journalist Association, told EFE that the Islamist regime, with the closure of the radio stations and the arrest of journalists, has increased pressure on the media. He called on the Taliban to stop acting tough on the media. We request the government to stop such actions and negotiate the problems, if any, through the Ministry of Culture and Information. The Afghan Journalist Center also condemned the arbitrary and illegal moves and called on the Taliban government to adhere to the media law approved by its government. Growing Taliban media curbs have sparked concerns from human rights groups since the Islamists seized power in Kabul on August 15th last year. Curbs have drastically limited critical reporting in Afghanistan. Human Rights Watch last month said the de facto Islamist government had carried out far-reaching censorship and violence against Afghan media in the district and provincial centers. Taliban harassment and attacks on journalists outside major urban areas have largely gone unreported, causing media outlets in outlying provinces to self-censor or close altogether, said an Afghan researcher at Human Rights Watch. In many provinces, the Taliban have virtually eliminated reporting on a wide range of issues and have driven women journalists out of the profession. The latest media curb comes after the Taliban recently barred BBC from broadcasting in Afghanistan. Mujahidi condemned the BBC ban and called on the Taliban government to revoke it. He said the media is a link between Afghanistan and the world. Banning the international media is not good for the people of Afghanistan and nor for the government. We call on the Taliban government to end this issue and allow the international media to broadcast in Afghanistan. The Taliban have not commented on the latest media curbs. In a related story, the Taliban has barred BBC TV programs from schedules. BBC TV programming has been taken off air in Afghanistan after the Taliban ordered local channels not to broadcast content from international partners. Calling it a worrying development, the BBC said it would affect more than 6 million viewers of Persian, Pashto, and Uzbek language service programs. The BBC Persian TV channel can still be accessed, but only by the 20% of Afghans who have satellite TV. Radio and online services are unaffected. Other international broadcasters whose programming was taken off the air by the ruling government include Voice of America, German company Deutsche Welle, and China Global Television Network.
That was kind of expected. Over time, we were wondering exactly what was the time frame and how long it would take before a lot of those broadcasters would be censored or taken off the air, and it's unfortunate. And that's why we need shortwave. Prague's Solidarity Radio targets Ukrainians from the Agence France Presse. Ukrainian refugees fleeing the war to the Czech Republic got a fresh morale booster this week as a new radio station based in Prague started offering broadcasts in Ukrainian. The new channel called Radio Ukraine broadcasts news, tips, and to refugees, music, and fairy tales for children, as well as spiritual comfort passed on by Ukrainian churches. Run by the Media Bohemia Group, comprising several radio stations, it broadcasts from an office building in central Prague via a mobile app and on the internet. It's a solidarity radio, said an on-air manager, Natalia Churikova, who spent 27 years working for Prague-based U.S.-funded Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. We are targeting Ukrainian war refugees who have moved here and trying to give them information they need to start a new life here before they can go back home, which we hope will eventually happen, she told AFP. The Czech Republic, an EU nation of 10.5 million people, has received more than 300,000 refugees since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th. A graphic artist and singer, Sofia Tatomir, left Ukraine for Prague 2 days later following an invitation by her worried aunt who lives in Prague. The 22-year-old, hailing from western Ukrainian city of Kalush, is working for the radio as a presenter, a dream job for her. It is my first time in Prague. It came all of a sudden, and I just ended up here working for the radio, doing my best to help Ukrainians with what I can do best, Tatomir said. Her family helped her find a job, owing to an ad posted on the internet. I have to communicate and interact with our listeners. One of Radio Ukraine's 10 employees who wants the radio to boost ties between Czechs and Ukrainians. Ukrainians already formed the largest minority in the Czech Republic before the war, comprising some 200,000 people. Following the influx of refugees, the public Czech television started offering its evening news in a Ukrainian version, while Czech radio transmits live broadcasts by Ukraine's public radio channel. Churikova said Radio Ukraine chief goal was to help the refugees feel more at home in the foreign country. Czech people help a lot, but when someone talks to you in Ukrainian and plays you a Ukrainian song, it will make your heart feel warm, she said. Churikova said she saw the radio, which launched Tuesday, as a medium taking listeners by the hand and accompanying them all day long. No other medium will create this mood, encourage you, make you think, and entertain you at the same time. She said outside the small studio with tables for 2 presenters and a Ukrainian flag on the wall, the mood is really nice here, and we're trying to pass it on to the people who have experienced terrible things, and now they need to calm down and start a new life. So this is definitely a nice story. Nice to see that they are using radio, they're using media to try to cheer up people that have been affected terribly by what's happening.
Yeah, there's so many stations that are doing this, new stations popping up, existing radio stations in many countries, not just in the Czech Republic, but we've had stories from Poland and a few other countries surrounding Ukraine who are receiving literally thousands of refugees coming in. So it's nice to have a friendly voice to be able to give them some information about what, who knows, could become their new permanent homes. It's changing a lot of things for a lot of people, that's for sure. Yep. Continuing with coverage, we have news from Radio Taiwan. Radio Taiwan International is adding new frequency for Russian language service. This comes from the SW Welling Post. On March 27th, Radio Taiwan is using the frequency of 6005 from 2000 to 2030 UTC, broadcasting to the European part of Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. Broadcasting on 5900 from 1700 to 1730, and on 9490 from 1100 to 1200 UTC will also continue. So adding Russian programming, that is probably targeting, with some credible information that might offset some other stories that the local people in Russia might be hearing. So there's a lot of that sort of counter broadcasting going on out there now as well.
Buffalo Wild Wings launches radio station. This is from Radio Inc. on March the 30th. The restaurant launched its own branded radio station on iHeartRadio called B-Dubs Radio, powered by wings, beer, and sports. The digital station features contemporary music, sports programming, and exclusive vignettes, such as weekly commentary from sportscaster and radio personality Dan Patrick, as well as the week's top sports matchups, key rivalries, trivia, and more. We wanted to create our own unique ongoing radio station that incorporates two of our guests' key passions, sports and music, says Bob Ruland, Vice President of Marketing, Buffalo Wild Wings. It's another great way for us to engage our guests outside of our restaurants, while also letting them know about specials and activities they'll find when they come in for the next big game. Listeners can tune in to the new B-Dubs Radio at iHeartRadio.com and on the iHeartRadio app. So some chicken wings with that?
Yeah, I guess they won't be running ads for other restaurants on the station.
I would not guess.
But if that takes off, I'm sure you might see more of that sort of thing going on. At least they're not using up radio spectrum. They are doing this online. So we've seen a lot of online radio stations popping up all over the place. So this is kind of a unique one, though, tied in directly to a restaurant chain. So I thought we'd throw that little lighthearted story in with a lot of serious stories that we've been having lately. So so if you're heading to a Buffalo Wild Wings, wherever you might be, see if you can tune into the B-Dubs radio station at iHeart.com and on the iHeart Radio app.
So there's some upcoming ham radio contests.
Yeah, things have fired up again for the coming weekend. Quite a bit of activity coming up. We start off with the Japan International DX CW contest, 0700 Zulu April 9th to 1300 Zulu April 10th. It's organized by the Japan International DX Contest Group. The objective is for amateurs around the world, DXers, to contact Japanese stations in as many Japanese prefectures and the JD1 prefix Japanese islands as possible. And Japanese hams can look to contact DX stations in as many DXCC entities and CQ zones as possible. It is CW only, though, and it's 1.8, 3.5, 7, 14, 21, and 28 megahertz bands.
And we have the interest group RTTY Worldwide Contest coming up, 12 Zulu April 9th to 18 Zulu April 10th. And the bands are 3.5, 7, 14, 21, and 28 megahertz. The mode is RTTY.
We have the Straight Key Century Club holding their weekend sprintathon. It is 1200 Zulu April 9th to 2359 Zulu April 10th. The bands are 160 through 10 meters, no work bands, and that is a CW contest.
The New Mexico QSO Party, 14 Zulu April 9th to 02 Zulu April 10th, organized by the Sandia Vista Amateur Radio Club. And the bands are 160, 80, 40, 20, 15, 10, 6, and 2 meters. Modes are phone, CW, and digital.
The Georgia QSO Party is 1800 Zulu April 9th to 2359 Zulu April 10th. That's organized by the North Fulton Amateur Radio League, 160 through 6 meters, and that one is phone and CW.
I was about to read the Hungarian silent key contest, but there would not be a lot of people there.
No. The bands are quiet.
The Hungarian straight key contest, 15 Zulu to 16 Zulu, April 10th, so just 1 hour, organized by members of Radio Club HA8KUX. The band is 80 meters from 3520 to 3570 kilohertz in CW.
And finally, the ARRL Rookie Roundup, SSB, 1800 to 2359 Zulu April the 10th, organized by the ARRL. The mission of the ARRL Rookie Roundup is to encourage newly licensed operators, or rookies, in North America, including territories and possessions, to operate on the HF bands and experience competitive amateur radio operating. It will be 80 through 10 meters and will be in single sideband.
Lots of stuff to listen to and to, of course, participate if you're a ham radio operator.
We have one late-breaking piece of news that we want to share with you from Nick Sharp in the UK. Some information he received from Tony Rogers on his IO group. The Forces TV is promoting a Falkland Islands 40s Day on Monday, April the 4th, which includes a program called My Secret Falklands War, when Britain's military took to the airwaves. And that'll be at 2000 hours in the UK. It's focusing on the 40th anniversary of the Falklands War. Yes, 40 years ago. And in particular, focusing on a British clandestine radio station that took to the airwaves called Radio Atlántico del Sur, which was in Spanish, aimed at the Argentinian troops. It's pretty interesting. There's going to be a documentary about this. It's called, as I said, My Secret Falklands War. So the best place for you to go to watch this documentary will probably be on the Forces News YouTube channel on Monday, April the 4th at 2000, that's UK time. So we'll put a link to all of this up on our Facebook page. So we thank Nick for passing that along.
Cool. That sounds great. And yes, 40 years. Time does fly. And we have some late-breaking news. This is from Shortwave Central website. The closure of the analog broadcast of the Voice of Greece has been delayed, even temporarily. So there was a decision that was taken last Wednesday and signed by the CEO of ERT. Public Radio and Television announced that at the request of the Ministry of Defense, the Avlida Shortwave Broadcast Center will remain active until May 31st, and they will re-evaluate the conditions for further continuation or not of its operations. So in an earlier decision, ERT had stated that its broadcast on shortwave would end on March 31st. So this is good news. Voice of Greece still there. Now, the battle hasn't been won yet, as it's extended until May 31st. So we've got to continue writing to them, letting them know we are listening to try to keep Voice of Greece on shortwave. So we are out of time.
We are. Thank you very much for tuning in today. If you have any information, you can pass it along to us through our Facebook page. It's probably the easiest. Look for International Radio Report on Facebook and join the group if you haven't done so already. We'll be back again next Sunday. We hope you can join us then with the next edition of the International Radio Report on CKUT 90.3 FM in Montreal. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
This This is the Falkland Islands Broadcasting Station, broadcasting on frequencies of